Yo, it is PS2 Fatboy back again with the Stone Samurai. Sorry for the hiatus on the podcast. Been pretty busy doing other things like work and a couple other things. So I do apologize. We were planning doing one last week, but in real life stuff happens. But we do have a really cool subject to talk about: urban legends, and this is something both dear to me and the Stone Samurai's heart. We love to find out about paranormal stuff, myths, stories, folklore, things that, did that actually happen and stuff like that. So we're kind of keen and interested about it. And also, if you got any interesting stories, if you watch this, if you got any interesting spooky stories or anything urban legends, please comment below and maybe put a link to it so we can get some background story and just read it ourselves. We'll find that quite interesting. Anyway, Stone Samurai, how you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty well, man. Doing pretty well with yourself.
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Just been flat out with the work. So, um,
Yeah.
I know you was really interested and keen to do this one, about the urban legends and stuff like that. And you said you wanted to get some information about where you live, and you got some interesting history about where you live. And so I thought maybe we'll start off with you. You could tell us a little bit about where you're from and what type of urban legends you might got for us to talk about today.
Yeah. So before I get started in that,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say thank you again, PS2, for giving me the opportunity to be on the
Oh,
podcast. Always a
anytime,
good
dude. I
time.
love having you here. You make me
Um,
sound interesting.
when it comes to urban legends, it's something that I've always been fascinated with because I
Mm,
myself, anybody who knows me,
mm,
anybody who's talked to me, I love history.
yeah.
And urban legends is a very nice mixture of myth and reality
Mm,
because a lot of time you find little half truths that are kind of sprinkled in
mm,
some of these urban legends, and it's a fun way to keep history alive,
yeah.
essentially, whether it be true or not. So with that being said, the city I come from, it's called Rockford, Illinois. All
Mm-hmm.
right, known as the Ford City, as it says right here on the shirt.
Yep. Yeah, you got the shirt on,
Um,
100%.
it was established in the late 1800s, like
Mm-hmm.
the majority of states over here.
Mm-hmm.
Located basically center center of the United States,
Mm-hmm.
land of Lincoln,
Yep.
fucking flex real quick. So yeah, it was a very very small town to start off with.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people that were part of the expansion out west. A lot of them would leave places like Tennessee or Virginia or any of the original 13 colonies, even all the way up to rather like places like Texas that were starting to get settled. Um, so they'd get off on their journey and go out west, and a lot of times, most of them would get about to Ohio, um, and they'd say, "Okay, fuck this. Like this is good enough for me. This is about as west goes for us."
Yeah.
And that's kind of the quick summarization of how my city was settled. But I was telling PS2 before I got on, my city has a lot of dark history,
Mm.
whether it be with Native American tribes and some of the
Mm.
superstition that's them,
Mm.
whether it be with mafia and organized crime,
Mm.
and we even had kind of our own Amityville horror where there was
Oh,
a
really?
man. Yeah, well, it was kind of a Amityville horror situation. Basically, what
Mm.
happened was a man had suspected. Now, this is according to him. This was the defense given, if I can
Mm.
actually speak.
Yeah.
Um, he found out his wife was cheating on him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is the supposed defense.
Yeah.
But what happened was, he went back home. He had 6 children, all of them sleeping. He grabbed his shotgun. He murdered all 6 of his children and
Mm.
the dog, got in his car, drove to where he suspected his wife was, where she was, and murdered her as well. Um, and it's one of those things like in my city growing up, you always hear different reasons as to why this guy did it. Some people, like I said, say it's because, found out his wife was cheating on him. He couldn't take it anymore. But then, of course, that's where the urban legends come in. His house was possessed. He was hearing
Mm.
voices.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
devil told him to do this. He tried making a deal with the devil. And that's kind of the segue, I guess you could say,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
into talk. Now, The first bit of urban legend that I wanted to talk about really quickly. It's known as Blood's Point. It's a place that I actually visited when I was a teenager, being stupid and trying to get into trouble. Um, just a quick little backstory about Blood's Point. It is nothing but a bunch of fucking deer and cornfield. All right. It's nothing but farmland. 17th century, a family with the last name of Blood ended up moving up to the area, and they started settling it, started raising cattle, etc., etc. And then you have Arthur Blood, who was the property owner.
Yeah.
He had two children.
Yeah.
And when they moved into the area, there was a woman who had lived in the wooded area that was near them. He had suspected her of witchcraft, so he had told his children, like, hey, stay the fuck away from her. Don't go near her. You know, nothing good will come of it. But kids being kids and kind-hearted as they are, right? Like, they see somebody who's lonely and they want to be around them because kids understand that feeling of loneliness, right?
Yeah, they do,
So the kids go out there and they go and visit her and blah blah blah. And Arthur Blood ends up finding out about this, and he becomes infuriated. And he has it made up in his mind that because his children didn't listen to him when they normally did, they were under the control of either the devil or this witch. So he rounded up a few people, a few farmhands, and a few others. And this is all according to legend, okay? But he rounded up farmhands and a few people, and he hung both of his children and the witch off of this infamous railroad bridge that goes through Blood's Point.
That sounds familiar. Did they make a movie or? It sounds familiar.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they made a movie.
Because it sounds familiar. I might have heard this story before somewhere. Because I used to read a lot up on this stuff in books and shit. But yeah, do continue. I'm sorry. It just sounds familiar.
Oh no, you're good.
No, continue.
You're good. Okay. But before she died, the witch, apparently she had put out a spell on the Blood family and the entire area. And what happened was it was one of the harshest winters that they had ever experienced. After that winter, a couple months, there was a huge fire that devastated and destroyed millions, or not millions, but hundreds of acres, and lots of livestock. And then after that, a lot of the members of the Blood's family started dying and just kind of met a tragic end. And again, this is all based off of legend, right? This is stuff that's passed down. A lot of historians that have looked into it, because obviously this is a very huge thing in my city. Like, every Halloween, kids go out there and they try to fucking experience the witch messing with you in the shed, or they try to find the hellhounds or whatever. But it's a really spooky place. So basically, the city I live in, 200,000 people, right, give or take. And then about 15-20 minutes drive, you start heading towards the Blood's Point area. So, all way off in the distance, you got city, blah blah blah, but out here it's just nothing but country, right? No lights, no nothing, just pure country. I will say, when we were driving up, and this is all off of memory, and mind you, I was a teenager, I was smoking a little bit of doobies, and I was fucking
drinking. You never. Get out of here.
Never. My name is nothing.
I'm not cheating,
But when you're driving out there and you get closer and closer to the cemetery, in the darkness, the trees start moving in weird ways, and you start hearing sounds that you normally don't hear, and
That's
gets
the drugs
freaky.
Talking kids. No.
Basically.
No.
Lots of strange lights, lots of crazy things. I will say this: there was an incident involving Blood's Point, and I'll never forget this. I had a group of friends that I used to hang out with, and they weren't necessarily the best people to be hanging out with,
Yeah.
but at the time they were my.
Yeah.
And they were getting ready to go out to Bloods Point one night.
Yeah.
And that night I decided just to stay home. I didn't want to do it, but they went out, and one of them ended up defiling a tombstone.
Oh, shit.
And actually took the tombstone and put it in the trunk of their car. All right. Now, fast forward, it's like a day or two later. I go over to the apartment of the person who took it, and we're chilling, and they're talking about their experience at Blood's Point. And that's when they start talking about the shit that they did.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh yeah, we knocked over this." I was like, "What the fuck's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like that's somebody's, like that's, like even then." And I'm not trying to make myself sound better, because like truth be told, I was a fucking shitty person then. I'm just slightly less shitty now.
No, you're right.
I just remember being like, "Dude, that's fucked up. Like,
yeah, it is.
why would you guys?"
I hate like desecrating graves. It's just a no-no.
Because like my whole thing is like, it's one thing if you want to go out to the cemetery, get drunk, smoke some weed, whatever. Like whatever, dude, that's cool. Like I really doubt that a dead person's gonna carry that some teenager's getting fucked up on their grave. Like if anything, they're probably like, "Yo, pass that shit."
Pass
you know what I mean?
Joint. Give me some of that fucking booze.
But the unfortunate thing was they had this tombstone in the car, and I'll never forget. We're at this apartment, and mind you, like I said, the city I live in is about a good 30-40 minutes away from this place, right?
Yeah.
Like minimum without traffic. We go outside to go smoke, and no bullshit, standing across from the parking lot is this dude that we've never seen before in our lives. And he's staring.
Yeah.
Like dead staring at him. Not saying nothing, just looking. And a couple of us, the dudes, because there's a couple girls there, a couple of us guys, we told the girls, "Okay, hey, go into the apartment, lock the door, all right? If we're not back in like 15-20 minutes, call our phone. If we don't answer our phone, call the police." Right? Simple as that.
Shit, yeah.
So the guy ends up walking over. And not to present it like in a movie way, but it seemed like it was a movie at the time. But like each step felt like it took a fucking lifetime, dude. Like I could literally feel, like, just thinking about it, like my heart started to like fucking do the shit it was doing then.
How old was you when this happened? Like, what you said he was a teenager? Yeah.
About 17 at the oldest. Like, yeah, about yeah, because yeah, that was when I'm not gonna say that, but that's when they had the apartment over in the park. Okay, yeah, so I had to be like around 17, 16 maybe. But I want to say 17 for sure.
Yep.
So this guy comes over, and he looks straight past me. He looks straight past my other friend, and he looks straight at the guy who owned the car, like dead fucking at him, right? And I'll never forget this, dude. I'm sorry, I'm getting goosebumps. He looks straight at him, dude.
Hope our viewers are getting goosebumps too, listening.
Dude, he looks straight at him. He goes, "I know what you did. You got 7 days."
Oh my god!
And walked away.
You told me this story. I remember you telling me when I first. I remember now because I remember you said the 7 days, and it freaked me the fuck out.
Yeah, like some ring shit.
Yeah,
like some ring shit.
Yeah, dude. That's
and the thing is,
shit.
And that fucked with me, man. And I'll never forget. Like I immediately
did they put the headstone back?
Well, that's what we get to. So we're all sitting around after that, right? Like we're freaking the fuck out. And I remember I told one of them, I was like, "Dude, you gotta put it back. Like you got to. Like you got to. Like in my mind, I was like, maybe we just like hallucinated that, and that's just like our conscience, right?
Yeah.
The mind is a very tricky thing,
it can
right?
Fool with you, can mess with you, definitely.
it can fuck with you, right? And then if you're in a group setting and adrenaline's in there
Mm-hmm.
and fear's in there, if you start saying, "Hey, I saw this," people are fucking freaking out and they want to be part of it and they want to understand it, so
Oh,
they
what?
saw it
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
You
Yeah.
get that.
Um.
There's a thing called for it. What's it called when you all think you're adamant that you've seen the same thing or witnessed the same thing? There's a term for it. I can't remember what it's called, but there is a term for it where
Yeah.
you on the same wavelength as someone like this said, I saw this, and they're like on the same wavelength. I forgot what it's called, but it's actually like a phenomenon where someone adamant, even though, and some people actually genuinely think that they were there, even when they weren't there. Oh, I remember that was. It just the mind, and like you said, the adrenaline kicks in and thinks it's there as well. But yeah, sorry, man, keep going.
No, you're good. I've been blabbering this whole time. I feel bad. But so I was at this point and I was just like,
Mm,
yo, we gotta fucking put this shit back. Like it's
mm,
as simple as that because either way, right? Like
mm.
let's say for sake of argument, because a couple of them are like, man, I'm not fucking scared. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I'm a superstitious ass motherfucker.
Oh, I am
I
too.
was like, okay, let's say for sake of argument, right, that
Mm.
this shit's real,
Yeah, yeah.
right? This motherfucker knows where you live. He knows what your car looks like.
Yeah. You're
You
fucked.
really gonna run?
Yeah, no, you wouldn't run.
You really gonna run?
No,
And
you don't.
even if it's not like some like superstition type thing, okay, the police had somebody out there and they were watching you dumb fucks
Yeah,
and they
exactly.
trailed you and now they're giving you kids a fucking they're fucking with us and they're giving us a couple days to be good kids and turn it in before they arrest us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That was my thinking process, right? That was the only thing I could think of.
Yeah.
And for a couple days, a couple of them fought on it. Like they fought on like bringing it back because they thought it was a cool thing to have a fucking tombstone.
Yeah. But it's not.
And but it isn't. And the thing, like I'm not even bullshitting, bro. Out of the, it was about 8 or 9 of us
Mm-hmm.
all together.
Yep.
Out of the 8 or 9,
Yep.
6 of those motherfuckers that whole week, dude, started getting sick. Like
Really?
I'm talking sick, bro. Like this one girl in particular, and again, I'm not gonna name names,
Yeah, that's okay.
but this one girl in particular, her hair started falling out.
Jesus.
I'm not even lying. Like I swear on everything that I love. Like her hair started falling out, and I think it was several days after that they finally returned the tombstone back to the cemetery.
That's fucking freaky. And
So
then what happened
you know,
after
people.
that? What happened after the tombstone? Did anyone get any more weird side effects, or was it like a?
Well, I'll tell you right now, all those people that I used to associate with, that were part of that night in particular, out of all of them, only one of them I know of that I still talk to is doing okay. The rest of them had pretty shitty lives. So like I said, right? Like I know this is kind of off subject, but I live in a big city.
Yeah.
And when you live in a big city comes big city problems.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the majority of people I used to hang out with, they're involved in either hard drugs now, or they're in jail, or they're dead.
Yeah, that's pretty
As
rough.
fucking morbid as that sounds, but that's just the experience.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's life in one way or another. You all choose your path.
Yeah, but I mean,
that's pretty freaky though.
That's not me accrediting, and that's not me accrediting like the curse of Blood's point to them.
No,
it's
no,
just
no.
like
It's in life.
it's just kind of like
yeah.
It was a spooky thing, and that was my experience with Blood's point. And again, it's one of those urban legends where a lot of the stuff that originated, a lot of it comes from like history. And then of course, you know, I guess it's kind of like up to me and it's up to you and the people listening, whether or not it's real. And that's kind of the fun thing about urban legends. There's one more I was going to talk about, and then I was going to give it to you because I feel like I'm just fucking blabbering.
It's okay, man. You're more prepared than I was because like, I got some. I was going to basically explain a town that I used to live that there was some weird things that happened there, and also the town I currently live in. About a couple of weird things, but that is perfectly fine. You can keep talking what you have to say. I'm sure people are finding it quite interesting. But like I said, urban legends is like you said, it's part true, part not fabricated, but what people put a spin on. It's like like when you tell somebody a thing and they say, "Can you pass that message on to somebody?" Then they tell it, but they don't remember all the bits and pieces, and they will put another spin on it. And by the time it gets to that other person, it's something completely different, or something. So so these tales are like hundreds of years old, but they're still around because people are interested in them. People love the unknown. People love not knowing if there's an afterlife, or what made that person do that, what made them snap. So these sort of things, people are very interested in this sort of stuff, because I feel that as a human being, we want to know: is there an afterlife? Are we just mere vessels, hosting our souls, and does anything happen afterwards? Like, it's just it's something I think, even if you're someone who doesn't believe in the superstitious stuff or that, I think in the back of your mind you will think about it one way or another. Eventually, especially I've always been interested in that sort of stuff. But my mum, growing up, she was a very superstitious woman because she's part gypsy. So growing up in that environment, you could not help but read tea leaves and afterlife stuff and all this stuff. So as much as I didn't want to begin with, like when I was getting a bit older, I was being a bit more skeptical, but there were some things that I witnessed that I can't explain, and you think, well, that makes the only sense. That makes the only sensible reason. That would be it. But like I said, when you're with a bunch of people, it could be a group hallucination, if they call it, and stuff like that. But you don't know. You don't know. Everyone's adamant. Oh no, that's not possible. But there's things that happen out there. People disappear. I was watching a documentary in the Rocky Mountains and stuff like that. In America, you got places where people disappear. They will go that entire route, day in, day out, go through look under every nook and cranny and not find one thing. Then 10 years later, they find a shoe. Even though they went through that whole area. I was watching a documentary about people disappearing, and then they found their clothing not even 5 miles away from their car, but they can't explain where's the rest of the body. These sort of things daunting, like, how the fuck, it just makes you think. But anyway, you said you got another tale to tell us, and I really want to hear this one too.
Yeah, but before I go into that, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think not only does the infatuation come with afterlife, but we also try to look for explanations on things that are around us in our current life, right? How many times has there been a moment, whether it's happened to you personally, or you've seen about it, or you've seen it, or you've heard about it, with moments like divine intervention, right? Like a lady sees a car coming towards her on the street that's swerving out of control, and something, whatever it is, literally in front of the car pushes it the other way when it was coming right towards her. Little instances like that. And actually, I didn't even know that about your mom. Funny enough,
she was a gypsy.
My mom and my grandmother are basically like Japanese gypsies.
Yeah.
So
every country's got them.
Grandmother.
Every country's got them.
Yeah. Well, like my grandmother, she practiced heavily a religion in Japan known as Shinto.
Yep.
And it was an ancient religion. It's actually featured quite a bit in the game that you played, Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, that game is so awesome. I love that game.
Yeah, so it's kind of like in essence, kind of like gypsy culture, right? Where it's a lot of holistic, a lot of nature-minded type superstition and magic. So yeah, that's a cool little thing that we share. I just wanted to put that in there. But anyways,
it's a cool little thing because, like I said, like my mum would believe this is just solely her. She believed that if you had a bat wing, it would bring you good luck. So she was trying to get a bat wing
Fucking
off someone to get good luck. And she would read your hand, the palm of your hand, to see how long you'd live, would any money come in your way, all that sort of stuff. And like at first, I was like, oh, that's just bullshit. But then you sort of like get into it and you like understand because like with everything they say, like once you read up about it and start understanding it, it makes kind of like a bit of sense because obviously this
mhm.
is something they've been doing for thousands of years, you know, and every generation on a generation comes to and understands it. Like if you have dreams, like my mum would tell me a dream, like if you dreamt of a rat, that meant someone in your life is bad. Someone that's close to you is not being truthful to you. So when I dreamt of a rat in my life one recent, like even then, like it was a couple of years ago, I dreamt of a rat, and then the first thing that dawned on
Mhm.
me was what my mum said. If you dream of someone of a rat, it means someone in your life is not genuine with you, is lying to you, your face. So, of course, the old superstitious nonsense, like I thought, but I couldn't help but have it come back in, feeling back into me again. So, and you know what's funny? I can't say the person's name. In a way, it was true. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but
No, it's the world is a very weird place, man.
oh,
It's
it's
a very
crazy.
fucking weird place.
It's a
Um,
place that like we are on the brink, but still on the very cusp of understanding these things. Like, um, there's just too much shit out there, and no one wants to make a practical reason on why this is that and that is that. And then there's just like I said, there's no explanation. There's no explanation.
well, it's
So
like at the end of it, right? Like things like this, you get two different reactions. You either get intrigued, right? Like people who are inquisitive about it and people who want to know more, and people who become fearful and decide to shut it down,
yeah,
whether it's through dismissing it,
mm,
belittling it, whatever the case is,
mm-hmm,
because at the end of the day, people want to have control and power in their life.
mm,
Nobody wants to. Nobody wants to have the thought in their mind that like I could be the strongest, smartest person I could be, but there's an entity that is in our world that can
mm,
literally fucking crush and change everything with a snap of a finger,
yeah,
and I have no control.
yeah, I
And
agree.
that's a scary thought. Nobody likes that. I mean, shit. You replace you replace ghostly entities or witches or demons or anything
Mm-hmm,
like that with things like cancer or any sort of other
mm,
very very serious and lethal disease, and it's the same thing. Nobody wants to think about like, well, fuck, man, I'm chuzzling all this fucking nasty food and shit. Like I'm gonna fucking, you know what I mean? Like nobody
yeah,
wants
yeah,
to think about
yeah,
the end.
yeah,
Nobody wants to think of the shit that might happen.
mm-hmm,
Um, but to get back on track, so the next one, and it's something that often gets um misassociated with the legend of the witch at Blood's Point,
yep.
is the Meridian Witch
Ah.
in my city. And
How many
this
fucking
ends
witches
up
do you have?
happening
How many witches do you
dude,
have,
I
dude?
told you, man, my my city is fucking weird, dude. I could
Yeah,
have a whole podcast about the
yeah,
craziness about my city.
yeah,
But so you have the Meridian Witch, and this is during from the 50s all the way up into the 80s is where the main parts of this story kind of coincide.
yep, yep,
Um so Meridian Road, which is towards the south side of my city, it's towards the outskirts, like that's it's way out there. Like you keep
yeah,
going down south and you start going towards like country got you crazy area.
yeah,
Um but there was a woman who had lived there, and it was kind of like a thing that was passed around teenagers in Rockford, like, oh, let's go fuck with the Meridian Witch, right? Like it's this
mm-hmm,
old lady lives in this small ass hut out in the woods, off
yep,
the grid by herself.
yep,
That's already spooky enough, even if she's not a witch, right? Because how
yeah,
the fuck does an old woman manage to live by herself? And that's not to say because she's a woman, but anybody who's had a relative who's past the age of like 60, 70 years old,
Yeah.
it's hard for them to live on their own,
Yeah.
especially
Exactly.
off like
Yeah.
no plumbing, no electricity. That's
Yeah.
fucking tough
Yeah. It
living.
is. Yeah. It is.
So a bunch of teenagers and younger people started disappearing in my city. And obviously, with her being a woman that's all out by herself, she was suspected to be responsible for that.
Mm.
Years down the road, the police and a few other authorities ended up apprehending her, and she was put into a mental ward.
Yep.
And um, after she was put there,
Mm.
it became a thing to like go to her house, like, yo, let's go to the Blue Witch house, right? That's what
Mm.
they would call her, the Blue Witch.
Yeah.
And what you do is you go down this road. Now, this is it's another country road, and it's a long ass road,
Yeah. Yeah.
dirt gravel, nothing but trees lined up on both sides. So when it's nighttime, anybody who lives on the street with trees, it's that much darker because you have all that shade coming from the trees at night. And it's just everything's drawn in a lot tighter.
Mm.
You go through this little patch of fucking this little dirt gravel road, and then on either side of you is woods, right? Thick, dense woods.
Mm.
And then off to the left, when you're coming down the road this way, off to the left is the little hut
Mm.
that she lived at. Now, I haven't done this myself because I'm a superstitious motherfucker. But if you knock 3 times, there's a couple different
The
things.
fucking Candyman appears.
Something like that.
Yeah.
If you knock 3 times, you either the witch shows up and she chases you
Mm.
throughout the woods,
Mm.
or if you knock, you'll start to hear the screams of her victims.
Ooh.
And then the other legend says when you knock 3 times and open the door, if you can open the door, it opens the door to the portal of hell itself. So,
Well, sounds like a party.
yeah, sounds like a good time.
Sounds like I need to go there.
And one quick honorable mention. I wanted to mention this because I think anybody who's into this shit should look it up. So there's a place called Mount Carmel
Mm.
that's in Illinois, and there's a cemetery that's there that's infamous because a lady named Julia Bucala, and if I fucked up the name, I apologize. Was buried there in 1921. She had died during childbirth, right?
Mm-hmm.
They ended up burying her, and her mother, for 6 years, was having dreams about her daughter screaming for her to let her out of her grave, that she was still alive.
That's creepy.
Okay? Right. So, they go to the cemetery, and the mother can't live with the grief anymore. She can't deal with these dreams. So she's finally able to persuade the groundskeeper, hey, we're gonna dig this up. They dig up the grave, they open the coffin, and what happened freaked everybody out. They opened the coffin, and her body was still preserved the same day as it was when she died.
Shit.
And the mother couldn't believe this. She didn't know what the fuck was going on. She was freaking out because this was 6 years after her body had been in the ground. And she took a picture. Now, supposedly, if you go to the cemetery, you can see the picture that the mother took after they dug up this grave to find her, and it shows a well-preserved body. And mind you, this is 6 years later. And so I just wanted to put that on there as an honorable mention. It's not in my city, but
that's cool. That's a cool thing. But I've actually read about that phenomenon about people who have been like they exhumed their graves for like maybe let's just say someone got murdered and they have to do some evidence. And a very rare case, they've found bodies still looking like the same when they got killed, and that's something to do with the body's material or something, or because oxygen breaks down things, and if the coffin is shut tight, there's another thing that's been told. So like it sort of like keeps it preserved in a way. I read that somewhere, but the body will eventually break down, but it's taking a slower process. I have heard that somewhere before, and I was an X-Files fan, and I actually so, but yeah, man, that's some cool stories. I like that. Well, I guess I'll have to say something now. I'm not entirely better prepared than you. I can't memorize shit like that because I'm an old motherfucker. But there's a town where I currently live in, and the town I live in is called Peterborough, and it's nice to. I think like you said, like every town, every city has got an urban legend. Like it's got a story, it's got history. It's obviously got the history when it was built, the settlers and all that stuff. But then there's a side of it that is a bit. There's a dark area, what people don't want to tell you about. And the one I'm going to talk about. Wait a minute. Is Saint Cecilia. It's a
Saint Cecilia.
Yeah, Saint Cecilia. I'm going to read it up about it for you.
No doubt.
Now, this is basically. Oh,
See, wrote it down.
You did? You wrote it down, Saint Cecilia. I didn't.
Yep. See.
Saint Cecilia, good man. But this is about ghosts. Like this is the what was the story? Ghosts. Saint Cecilia. Yep. Here we go. Got it. I think. All right. So Saint
Got
Cecilia.
it, man.
Yeah, Saint Cecilia is a historic mansion, right? It's really. If you look up pictures of it, it looks creepy. It looks like something out of Amityville Horror. It looks out of place where I live. It looks out of place where I live, right? It's near a school. It's a 2-story mansion, right? It's an Edwardian mansion. It was built by Bishop John Norton, the first Australian-born bishop, built out of hand-hewn sandstone, fitted with large light windows and with hue on pine used throughout. It certainly is a striking hotel. It's beautiful. It is beautiful inside. Now, the person who did own it, they used to do murder mystery nights. You could spend a night in there and like do a whodunit thing, but then people started getting freaked out, And you can have ghostly sleepouts and sleepovers and stuff. We were lucky enough to have. It was. All right, I'm not going to read this, but anyway, I want the history. Okay, history of Saint Cecilia. But anyway, this house, right? Has, from what I remember, it was built around 1812. It is a heritage listed as an Edwardian style. Apparently, the ex-bishop did not want to live in the building, and it was adapted into a convent and boarding school for St. Joseph's Catholic girls until 1973. All right. Right, here we go. So St. Cecilia is a wonderful old mansion consisting of 20 rooms and made from hand-hewn sandstone, built in 1912. Okay, that's different. And completed in 1930. It was designed and built for Bishop James Henry Norton, who was the first Australian priest to be made a bishop. It was his pride and joy until his death in 1923, aged 68. After his death, the predecessor moved in but only stayed a short time as he started feeling uncomfortable in the house. It was then converted to a convent and boarding school for 50 years until Annette Barnett Frankel bought it. Now, she was a lady who owned this house, and she was fucking batshit crazy, this woman. She was like those eccentrics, right? She was an eccentric lady. I actually dealt with this lady, and I remember asking one time, how much does it cost to stay there? And she was like a bit eccentric and stuff. Anyway, she's actually in the loony... I think she's alive, but she's in an old folks home because she's getting on. But anyway, but this house, I know that there's apparently the priest died in it, and one nun died in there. All right, I don't know the whole story, but apparently there's rumors that there was a suicide. Both committed suicide. Now, I'm not 100% sure about all this, but he died, and then when they made it into a convent for the nuns to stay there, one of them committed suicide, died. And people who've stayed in there felt unease and all this sort of stuff. They just there was just something wrong about it. And like it said in that story, like that priest didn't want to stay there anymore. He just felt uncomfortable. But people who stay there for these haunted nights have been stating that they'll be staying there and they just feel really weird. They've actually done paranormal activity. There's even stuff on YouTube, I believe, where people have gone to their house and put objects down, and then they'll go back there and they've been moved and stuff like that. And they'll even do like radio, turn a radio on and actually hear like static or like someone's talking, that white noise effect. So to be in a town where there's sort of like some sort of paranormal stuff, and also, like I said, the house looks out of place where I live. It just looks something out of Victorian era, like in the UK somewhere. It just looks different from everything else around here. But that house is a key interest to a lot of people that come in and out to go, and like yourself, you're the witch. People are curious; they want to know if it's true or not, so they go over there and they do the readings and stuff. And nearly 9 times out of 10, someone will find something weird happening over there, whether it's a noise or something being moved or the white noise that they're getting. So that's one of the little tidbits in here. And there's a story. I'm not 100% sure. I would like to get some information, but it's very loose. There's a town up near called Dawson that's just out of where I live, and it was like a settlers area where people were just basically building up there because, like, there's potential like a mine that were mining there and stuff. And I was checking some because there's a cemetery there, really old cemetery. It's like maybe 40, 50 graves, maybe 60 graves. But one of the headstones there, the family got murdered by the father. So he went there, apparently a normal fellow, and then one day just killed his whole family. So when you're living in a small town and you hear that and you read up about it and you're like, wow, what the hell got him? And I can't find any information about it, like much information, but all that's it is on there is like, he came home, killed his family. I think he had like a couple of kids and a wife, and he just murdered them, and then he killed himself. So
no,
but from what I gathered, because I talked to a couple of people about it, and they said from what they heard, this guy was just a normal run-of-the-mill fellow, did his job, loved his family, and then one day just snapped. But people say when they go to that cemetery, they get chills, they feel something weird around there and stuff like that. So whether that's just your mind playing, but that's a remote area. Like Dawson is like, there's no bitumen roads, it's all dirt road. There was a pub here, there was a church there, and a race track there, but they have like a mining area there. And so, people, settlers going out there, they're digging dirt, accidents happen. People died at a very young age, because they're living out in the middle of nowhere. There's no medical assistance when you do an injury. But just those weird things like that, it just daunts on you, like, okay, what would make someone just do that all of a sudden? With no apparent reasoning, but then when people have said that they've gone past it, and even I, like when I went there, I just sort of got a bit uneasy too, because like when I read it, I was like, whoa, because usually back in those days, it was either infant deaths, or elderly people, or people having tragic accidents with working in mines or some sort of farming accident, because it wasn't safe. Be dangerous. But then you read up this story in the headstone, loving husband, wife kills his family. Like, it's like, whoa. But I'll try and find some information about that. Like, I can't really find much about it, but a couple of people told me. But then again, urban legend. People will tell you something, oh yeah, I go there and I get freaked out, and oh, he was apparently a nice bloke and just snapped. But like I said, legend, yeah.
I mean, shoot, dude, like fucking. I know my dad. He had told me a couple stories. Like, so he was a lot younger. This happened in the 70s or 80s. He was at a bar, and he's having a drink, and one of his coworkers came in, and coworker said hi to him, said hi back, had a beer, shot the shit for a couple minutes. That night, after that guy left that bar, he went back home, killed his wife,
Mm-hmm.
her kid, and then went and killed himself.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and like he was just talking about how it's one of those situations, and then of course, like anytime that people would go to the area, because he ended up shooting himself in this little wooded area where a bunch of local kids would hang out at, and that's the only reason they found his
Mm.
body, because they were looking for him for, I don't know, 7 8 days.
Mm.
They couldn't find him, and then finally somebody was like, "Well, I know he used to hang out with so and so over at this spot,"
Mm.
and that's where they went and they found his body. And
Mm.
of course, after that, if you go there at a certain time, you can hear, the sound of a 22 rifle going off, or
Yeah.
whatever the case is.
Yeah.
But like you said, I think that's why I myself enjoy urban legends.
Yeah.
And why so many people find them fascinating is because there's a lot of weird stuff that happens
Mm.
on a day-to-day basis, right? Like, we often think of random mysterious things happening and thinking that it's Hollywood, but um, anybody who spent a full day out on the street in a city can tell you the stories that they hear and the things that they see
Mm.
are unexplainable.
Mm.
And again, it's a fun way to try to have an explanation for some of the weird things that happen, some of the weird
Mm.
feelings that you get.
That's a. It actually reminded me of a story I read recently. I believe this was in Victoria, Melbourne, and this lady was she bought an apartment or was renting an apartment, and she would hear noises at night, and she thought maybe there was like a rat or a mouse in her house, like a scuttling sound or scratching sound, and it was doing her head in. She would hear it every night. She wouldn't hear it though during the day, but when she was ready to go to bed at night, she'd hear this noise. And her building that she was in, I believe, was like an old motel, but it had been updated and all that sort of stuff. And she kept hearing this noise, and then she go to a what's it called? Is it a super over there in America? The landlord, and said, "Look, keep hearing these noises. I don't know if it's vermin in the roof or in the walls. It's just doing my head in. I don't hear anything during the day, but when I get home and I'm ready to go to bed, that's when I hear the scratching sound." So he got an exterminator, put some baits down, and would still hear it constantly. And it was doing her head in, but she hear more of it behind her cupboard. She had like a built-in wall cupboard where her clothes were. And then one day she was going in there, putting her clothes away, and she'd hear the scratching sound, but it sounded like it was coming directly behind the wall. And she thought, "Fuck this! I'm gonna go and check it." And so she was just tapping along the cupboard wall, and it felt kind of hollow. And she got some tools and removed the back wall of the cupboard, and found an old room that looked untouched. There was an old bed. It was really small, but then when the whole hotel got upgraded, it was like one room they left, and they've just put a cupboard right in front of it. And she found out that years and years ago, people had died, and that was one of the rooms that someone actually died, and they were scratching at the wall because of the fire. So that is some freaky. That was some freaky shit. And when I read that, that put chills up my spine. So every night she was hearing this noise, but when she found the room, it stopped. When she found the room, it stopped. But she moved because, like she said, because she went to the landlord.
I wouldn't want to fucking live there, dude.
Yeah, because she went to the landlord and said, "Look, I found this room there," and he went up there, and then he found out the history about the building. Apparently, in the 20s or something, or even earlier, that building got burnt, and people actually got cooked in there, and that was one of the rooms. And so instead of upgrading it, they actually just built like this built-in cupboard there because it was a pretty small room, and someone died in there. And so the noise that she was hearing, the scratching, was, she said it, and then it dawned on her, it sounded like a scratching on a wall. So she's like, "No, I'm out of here." And then what happened was, a few months later, someone got in the same room, like was renting the same room, and they started hearing the same noises. So now that room, no one rents it. No one stays in that room. So,
Yeah.
but I think they even upgraded the small room. They've blocked it all off, but you can still hear the noise apparently. But I'll try and find that information about that place. But that is some crazy shit.
No, it's that's what I mean. Like, bro,
Mm,
I feel like just like urban legends, I feel like almost every city has that place that nobody fucking buys. Like,
mm,
there was an apartment complex that was on the east
mm,
side of town.
mm,
Um, and I remember I'd always see like every parking spot
mm,
filled up in this apartment complex except for the one at the end.
yeah.
Like all the fucking time.
Mm,
And even to this day, like nobody ever sets foot in that apartment.
mm-hmm.
Like the landowner hasn't he doesn't rent it out to anybody. Like people have made offers.
Yeah.
People have said they don't care, they don't believe in ghosts, whatever. And the landowner's like, no, like you're not moving in there.
Yep.
Basically, long story short, it was a murder suicide that took place in this apartment complex.
Yep.
And everybody who started moving in there would experience all sorts of shit, and it's just like that's why, man, it's so fascinating to me to hear people that are like adamant that there is no, I don't know, I don't even know how to refer to it, but
Mm.
like other than entity, there's some sort of existence of some sort of entity around us, because man, uh, you can only deny so much. Like I don't know, I
Yeah.
myself have had plenty of
Well, I've
experiences
had some experiences too,
where
dude. I like honestly, I'm the same. I've had some weird shit happen to me, and like, there's been several
yeah,
instances where
you can't fucking explain,
you
dude.
can't fucking
Like,
explain it. No matter how you try to put like an actual, no, this would be a more practical thing, and then you think it over and over in your head. It's like there's no other way to explain it. This is what
no,
happened. Yeah,
not at all.
yeah, I agree. Listen, Hirsch, what I'm gonna do is we're
Yeah,
gonna stop it here for a second. This is part one, and we're gonna go to part two. We're gonna have a quick little break, and then
yeah,
we're going to do part two of the urban legends. Be right back from now a word from our non-sponsors. Sponsors today are Doobie Rollers and Coffee. Like and subscribe.
breaking up weed,
Okay,
druggy.
let's go for again. We're going to be talking about more of the urban legends, stuff that it's just not explained, or there's no real explanation of what's happened. Thanks for sticking around this long. We appreciate it. Well, as I said, these are subjects that me and Hershey like talking about and finding information about. I think, in a way, everyone finds this sort of stuff kind of curious and interesting. Um, and what's amazing and how much, even in a small rural area where I live, there's stories. Like I just explained St. Cecilia's. There's a town called, a little mini town called Dorset where something I'm going to explain happened there. There's also a old jail, which is about 45-minute drive from me, where same thing, where prisoners have died and they're saying that they see apparitions there, ghosts. And you can actually spend a night there. A lot of history on this prison there, and it's no longer a functioning prison. It's more of a history spot now. But people do like to go there, check out paranormal activity and stuff like that. But it wasn't a very nice prison either. They actually made a movie there in 1980 with some Australian actors, and they actually stayed in Jamestown, which is a 30-minute drive from where I live, while they were making that film. But the prison itself apparently has some ghosts, some apparitions there, wandering the lonely cold corridors at night, scaring people who go there to look for the ghosts and stuff like that. So they're doing their listening with the radio, noticing any movement, catching anything feed. But yeah, but like I said, you can spend the night there. But I think also there's a thrill to it as well, where I believe people like being scared. They like the thrill, the adrenaline of it, the excitement of it,
Oh
of the
hell yeah!
unknown. Yeah. So, um, should I be recording this?
Oh yeah, dude, it's fine.
That's okay. It's okay in his country, so get over it.
No, I've watched so many YouTube videos of people like fucking smoking blunts and like doing crazy shit.
That's okay. I'm just checking. Hey,
Plus, it's legal in my
hey,
state. Fucking
hey, if it's all right for Joe Rogan, it's all right for here as well. So fuck that shit.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah.
saying.
If
That's
Joe
what I'm
Rogan,
saying.
if he
Like,
can eat edibles and shit, all right, fuck it.
bro, if somebody is offended by me hitting my bong, I have something for you. Hold on, let me
Yeah,
check my
you gonna
pocket.
get it out? Ah, me too. Fuck
There we
yeah.
go. Fucking oh
Oh
shit,
yeah.
what's that? Buy
Wait,
one,
go
get one
on.
free.
Oh
Shit, dude, there's
shit!
two
Bang
of
bang
them.
bang bang
Oh
bang.
shit. Yeah,
But
fucking a.
anyway, I did want to talk about a town that I lived in as a kid. But like I said, like it's amazing how much shit that's kind of really creepy and scary and unknown just in a small area. Um, Back in the early 80s when I was about 6, 7 onwards, I lived in a small town called Kapunda in South Australia, and it's not far from Adelaide, which is the capital city of Australia. Um, this town is notorious for weird events. It actually had a murder, a double homicide there a few years ago. The guy is actually still in jail. There was a big story about it and a lot of shit going on. But before that, there's a lot of hot spots in the town where people claim they see unexplained things. And North of Kapunda Hotel is apparently one of the most haunted pubs in Australia. So what they're saying, Kapunda is an unsuspecting, quiet country town in rural South Australia, once known for its mining copper, but today notorious for being dubbed Australia's most haunted town. Just like most other small Aussie communities, Kapunda's main road is adorned with a local pub. The North Kapunda Hotel sells itself aside as the others and helps Kapunda live up to its haunted reputation. It has been listed as one of Australia's and even one of the world's most haunted pubs multiple times, thanks to the many spirits that reside within. I'll send you a link to this pub, dude, because it is creepy as shit.
Yeah.
On November 7th...
Fucking.
Oh, yeah, this pub is creepy as balls, man. I remember this pub. Even walking on the outskirts of the pub, I'd freak out. On November 7th, 1849, the North Kapunda Hotel opened its doors for business as it played an important part of the town's history and has been seen a colourful past, which has no doubt contributed to the many reports of paranormal activity within the pub. Reports and experiences of paranormal activity are commonplace at the North Kapunda Hotel in South Australia. The building is made of an underground rooms, a ground level and one floor, and one extra floor for formal accommodation, all of which tell the stories of the pub's ghostly residents. 2 girls are said to haunt the upstairs formal accommodation rooms. One of these girls, Emily, is a 15-year-old who's commonly seen sitting on a windowsill of a room overlooking the pub's courtyard. She's thought to have restricted herself to the upstairs area of fearing interacting with another more malevolent male spirit. Her death and origins are not known. Another young spirit within the house is that of Sarah. This young girl has been seen multiple witnesses, including a psychic. There is much mystery surrounding a young spirit, but no one is really sure where her origins lie. Some have speculated that she was pushed over the hotel's balcony and died from injuries she sustained. Another resident ghost who is rumoured to dwell in the North Kapunda Hotel is Matthew Henry Smith Blood, better known as Dr. Blood. The mysterious Dr. Blood has said to have performed strange human experiments in life, and mystery continues to surround him in death. Allegedly, his spirit has been described as by a psychic who visited the hotel. His presence at the hotel is interesting considering he never actually practiced or had an office on site, as he's been rumoured within local folklore. A more malevolent spirit within the hotel demands attention and is well known as the Man in Black. He's frequently seen wearing all black and a wide-brimmed hat. He managed to strike fear into other female spirits within the house, and plenty of guests and staff members who have been unlucky enough to encounter him. He tends to be quite aggressive, especially towards women, and has asked people to get out on multiple occasions. Yet another well-known and cited spirit within the North Kapunda Hotel is that of a maid. This older woman dressed in 1800 clothing will appear in a full-body apparition near the front desk and make her way into a nearby gaming room. She has been sighted by multiple people, and the heavy doors of the gaming room as notorious for opening by themselves. Now, these doors are barred. It takes quite an effort to open these doors. They're quite heavy. Multiple other ghosts crowd this very haunted building. There is a spirit on an Indigenous Australian man who was murdered for revenge after breaking one of the pub's windows. An older lady who appears behind the bar, a woman and her young daughter seen in the underground dining area of the hotel, and even an apparition appears in a photo of the Queen hung in the hotel. These known hauntings provide plenty of ghostly happenings throughout the hotel. Disembodied footsteps and voices have been recorded. Poltergeist activity is common. Electronic appliances are interfered with, and people have even been touched and visibly scratched upstairs. There have been many other creepy pieces of history that have informed the pub's sinister reputation. A man was once crushed to death by a hail bale in the pub's courtyard. The cellar of the pub has also been said to have been used for storage of bodies as a makeshift morgue. That is something I can relate to, and I'll tell you in a minute. Then there's the many dark tales of prostitution, suicide, and murder that have helped build the North Kapunda Hotel's notoriety throughout its existence. The North Kapunda Hotel is a beautiful old building that houses an awesome pub. It consists of multiple rooms accessible to the general public, including a front bar. Do you want to stay there yet? No. Small gaming room, indoor dining, outdoor dining in a courtyard, and an underground dining room which is available to rent for special occasions. The North Kapunda Hotel, North Kapunda's Australian pub menu provides its visitors with a good feed. There's plenty of great drinks on offer too. Staff are extremely attentive, friendly, and happy to chat about the paranormal stories that the building's famous for. Asked to have a look at their photo moment of ghostly evidence caught on camera. So, in order to explore the more active and haunted parts of the hotel, a ghost tour must be booked. They take attendees upstairs and underground and the unused parts of the hotel wing, which are giving overview to the building's haunted history. Now, I lived there for 3 years, I think. 3 years in Kapunda. And in that short time... Kapunda, dude, honestly, look it up online, man. It is a freaky fucking town. There's a story of an orphanage near Kapunda where it got burnt down and all the kids got burnt and died, and apparently people go there and spend a night there, and they can hear the kids' screams. That is some scary shit.
Yeah, fuck that, dude. That's a whole lot of nope from me.
Yeah, but as I was going to say, when I stayed there as a young kid, I just started school. Now, like I said, I was about 7 or 8. And I would always take the same route. Leaving school, I'd go up the road, and where I lived, it was a housing trust home. They would just start to build these housing trust homes on the outskirts of the town, and so it was a bit of a hike. I had to walk up the road, then you could walk down this other way, and I decided to go the long way for some reason. I don't know why, because being a kid, you're being, curious. You want to see another route and see what's on the other side of town and stuff like that. Anyway, I went this way, and I thought, nah, this walking is pretty dumb. I'm gonna go walk past. There was like a field, a paddock, and the grass was really high. Now I walked. There was no one in front of me. There was no one behind me. It was like a blank area, so there was no one I could see for a good distance. I went across this paddock. Now I'm not tall. I'm just a kid, so the grass was pretty high. It was past my head. But as I was going through that paddock, I had this sudden sense of dread, like something really just got me right in the chest. Like it felt bad. And I felt that someone was walking in the paddock with me. And then I looked around and I couldn't see anything. I could just hear myself heart pumping like mad. And I was scared. So yeah, pretty much I was scared. So I started running through this paddock. But when I was running, I was so adamant that I could hear footsteps behind me, and I was running. And I was running for my life, and I ran to the other side, and I jumped over the fence, hurt myself, cut myself up, and then I quickly looked around, and I didn't see nothing. And it sounded really heavy set, like it sounded like big footsteps. And to this day, I can still remember it, and it still gives me chills. You know, and if it was a person, like I would have seen something because the grass was blowing around everywhere. I would have seen some like a shoulder hunkered over like that. I would have seen something. I didn't see nothing, but I heard it was like those footsteps were right behind me. I could feel the hairs. Even my hairs on my back and neck now are going all creepy. I could just feel someone right behind me, dude, and it really scared the shit out of me. It scared the hell out of me.
That's a terrifying feeling. Fuck that.
And I got home. I never took that path again. Never. But like I said, that town Kapunda has got a lot of weird stuff. And there was another thing I remember when I was young in the same town. There was like where the housing trust homes were. There was a long road up this way, and there was all these shrubs and bushes and trees. And I was always curious to see what was behind there. So I went with my friends from school. We went past it, and they said, "Oh, it's a big house there." And I was like, "What? Okay." So we looked in there, and there's this big old stone house, and it looked really, old and stuff, but it looked in good nick. And there's a nice car in there, and all this sort of stuff. And I said to my friend, "Who's that up there in the window? Is someone's eyeballing us?" And it was like this old guy just looking down at us. So like he just giving us like this really disapproval look. So we fucked off because we didn't like his look. And then we went there the next day, saw the same dude looking through the same window. And then I remember talking to my friends, and I think one of my friends said their older brother said no one lives there. It's there's someone who caretakers their house as part of the history, so somebody just goes there and clean it up. And I said, well, we saw him. And I said, who did you see? I said, some old dude. And I said, there's no old dude. The caretaker's a young guy. He's taking care of us. I said, well, we saw an old dude. And someone said that there's a ghost there of an old person who lived there and died in the house. And then I was like, bullshit. And that was it. But when you look at someone, and I mean, man, I shouldn't be talking about this stuff because I'm going to fucking have nightmares. But when you look at someone and there's just something off about him, when I looked at that dude, there was something off about him. It was just something not right. Yeah.
No, I get you.
It scared the shit out of me. And I can still remember his face. Very gaunt, like he had sullen cheekbones, like a frown, like this really serious frown, and like a dark suit on, and he just had like, I don't know if you've seen the movie The Phantasm movies with the tall man, he looked kind of creepy, sort of like him in a way, but I can't remember if he had a hat on, but I could just remember this really gaunt, long, elongated face, and it just didn't look right, looked creepy as fuck.
No, it's There's definitely moments where like just stuff seems out of place. I mean, I know I was at my cousin's house, all right?
Yep.
And we my cousin was a lot younger, and he didn't really have many friends and shit like that. So like I'd go over there and hang out, be the good cousin. And he used to do this shit where like he'd get salty or whatever, because the thing was anybody who hangs out with me, I don't like to exclude people, but at the same time, I don't like to coddle people either. Like, I don't, like, you're getting special treatment in the fact that, like, I'm making sure to include you and, like, going out of my way, because most people don't fucking give a shit, right? Like, they don't. That's the sad truth. Even if they're family or not, or if they're friend or not. People just don't care. So he used to get all up in his feelings and shit because, like, he would sit there, he'd make jokes at us, and we make jokes back, and he'd get salty about it, and he'd fucking go run off and hide. That was his thing to do.
Yep.
And I was there, man. My cousin, one of my other cousins, his older brother, we're sitting there, we're fucking looking for him because my aunt's about to be home,
Mm.
and he had to take his medicine. All right, like my one cousin was born with heart problems. Okay,
Yep.
so like he had to take medicine at a specific time. Otherwise, he would like go to the hospital. It'd be serious consequences.
Yep.
And we're looking for him because it's like, yo, like my aunt's about to be home. We need to hurry the fuck up and find him. He needs to take his medicine. If he doesn't, we're gonna be in trouble. We're gonna be in a lot of fucking trouble, right?
Yep.
So we're searching, we're searching. It's a big ass house, right? It's a 2-story house, big ass house.
Yep.
Looking around, and the way it was set up was so like the kitchen is like right here.
Yep.
All right. Dining room is on this side. You go from the dining room, and then to the right over here is this little hallway. Down this way is the basement, and then up over here is the garage. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
So I come in through the kitchen. I look in there. He's not in there. All right. I turn to the hallway. I look in the garage. I don't see him. But then I look downstairs, and my other cousin's with me, right next to me, and I see a fucking hand sticking out from the basement door. Because they're like, you look down, it's a staircase. There's a doorway that's on the right side and a doorway on the left. The doorway on the left leads to like a living room type basement area, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the door on the right was like the washroom and like the basement office and the workout area, blah, blah, blah. And that's where he was. So we looked, and I was like, all right. I said his name. I called him out, asked for him to, like cut the shit. And the fucking hand disappears and goes into the room. And I was pissed off. I was like, bro, I ain't got time for fucking games. Like, she's about to be home. So I go down there with my cousin, and we start, like, screaming out for him. We look in every room. He's not in there. And no bullshit, 2 seconds after we get done searching every room, we hear from the fucking kitchen, my cousin Tyler, right, the one we're looking for, screaming out for us, asking us where we are. And I'll never forget, like, when I, like you said, when I saw that hand sticking out, like, it looked like my cousin's hand. And that's why we went down there. But there was something off about it. And I remember the only reason I went down there, the only reason I went down them steps is because I had my cousin with me. So I was like, whatever, right? Like,
I got my protector.
Like,
There's two of us. Yeah, fuck you guys.
Yeah, I can push his ass down and fucking go get up the motherfucking stairs. You know?
Some scary shit.
But yeah, it was just scary as fuck, man. Like there's certain things that are out of character and out of that just give you the fucking heebie-jeebies, man, for sure.
With that house that they were in, was there any history of any weird activity, like a murder or ghostly apparitions or anything like that?
Well, I mean, the people who had owned the house before had died, and the only reason I knew that is because, all right, so like I had 3 cousins that stayed in that house, right? I fucked up and said one of their names I shouldn't have, but I had 3 cousins, and one. They all fucked with shit, but the older one, he had done research on the house, and he ended up finding out that people had passed away. It was an elder couple that had passed away in the home. Now, down the street from them is one of the most haunted houses in my city. Like, people move. There was like a whole newspaper article about it. Anyways, The thing that made my cousin's house what it was, because there was a lot of shit that ended up happening there. My cousins fuck with Ouija boards.
I don't fuck with them.
Like, yeah, so I'll never forget, man. I was over there when they actually did it. After that night, I always told them if they ever do it, I don't want to be there. Because that night was literally fucking nuts, dude. Like, I'm not. So we're over there, and we were kids, and I've always been infatuated with like ghosts and all that. And we were in the basement, and my cousin broke out the Ouija board. He lit all the candles and stuff like that, and it was all 4 of us down there because it was the 3 brothers and it was me. And we we did like this little seance thing, and then fucking did the Ouija board. And the fucked up thing was, I was the only person who put my hand on the little eyeglass thing that you use to like sift around. All
Yep,
right.
yep, 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 yep.
I wasn't moving that shit, and that shit started moving by itself. Like and they thought I was fucking with them,
Mm.
but I was freaking out because like I
Yeah.
wasn't moving shit, right?
Yeah.
We're doing that, and all of a sudden, like it just like the best way to describe it is before a storm comes and you're outside
Yeah.
and you start feeling you feel the ringing, like not even hearing it, but you feel like that pressure, right? Like it's building up. That's what I felt.
Yeah.
And then it got like it didn't get cold. It just like the best way to describe it is like when you're sick, where it's not cold, it's not hot, but you're sweating.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Like you've got a fever.
Like that type of, yeah. And I started freaking out, and I was like, all right, that's it. So I told my older cousin, I was like, turn on the lights, I'm fucking done.
Yeah.
Like I'm good, because we started asking questions and shit like that, and some of the stuff that happened. I was just like, all right, I'm done.
Yep.
So I was staying the night there, and it's getting closer to midnight, and that's when shit starts happening. Now I told you before, it's this 2-story house, and we were all chilling in the living room, and the way the living room was, there's a staircase that goes right up from the living room. So it's like living room, staircase, dining room, kitchen on the backside. Okay. We're all sitting in the living room playing Nintendo 64. All right. All of a sudden, all you hear is do 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 do. It sounds like someone's running back and forth in the hallways upstairs, and that's where all the bedrooms were for the kids.
Yep.
Running back and forth. And all of us were down there. So it was my eldest cousin, the cousin that was around my age, and my youngest cousin.
Yep.
All of us were down there. My aunt and uncle weren't there. We're freaking the fuck out. Because it's like, yo, what the fuck is running up there? Like, it's not cat footsteps, dude. You know what I mean? Like, you can tell the difference between a fucking cat running and a person running. So we were dealing with that. Doors started opening and closing by themselves. Lights went out by themselves. And I still swear to this day, one of the doors, I was going up to the bedrooms, right? Because I was like, fuck this, I'm gonna lay down, I'm gonna go to sleep. Hopefully I can just go to sleep and it'll be done. And as I'm walking up the stairs, the fucking door shuts, and I swear to God, like to this day, I saw a fucking face start to morph into that door. Like to this day, I can still see it. Like I can still see the way that things started moving on that door and started looking like a face. Like that. Just talking about it right now, like my hair is fucking.
No, that's normal. Yeah. Man. It sounds something similar to what my friend happened to him too. But I'll let you finish.
So after that, I was just like, yeah, I'm done. That's why, like now, anybody mentions Ouija board, I'm like, nope, I'm good. Because at the end of the day, bro, like my cousins, they did it 2 or 3 more times after the incident that we had. They claimed that they had gotten attacked, but I wasn't there, so I can't confirm.
Yeah.
But what I can confirm is I was there when they threw it away.
Yep.
Okay. I went back over there, and I go into my cousin's room, who's around the same age as me. And guess what was right there on his bed?
That damn Ouija board?
Fucking Ouija.
Yeah.
Damn fucking Ouija board. And the thing is, right, like I went in there and I was waiting for him. And he comes in, dude, and I he literally dropped his jaw. Like fucking dropped his jaw, and he was like, dude, what the fuck are you doing with that in here? I was like, me, motherfucker, what are you? Like, what do you mean me?
Yeah.
Like, you're the motherfucker. To this day, he swears up and down he did not put that Ouija board there.
Yeah.
It wasn't there when he got up. It wasn't there before I arrived there. To this day. to this day.
I,
So yeah,
I, yeah,
I'm good on Ouija boards, man. Fuck that shit.
yeah, that's some scary shit. The thing you mentioned before about the face morphing
Hmm.
to a wall. That sounds like something that happened to a friend of mine. He was. I lived in another town called Tarawi, and a friend of mine said to me, I think I'm trying to remember the story. I think his grandma or grandfather passed away, and their grandmother. Yeah, it was his grandmother. Sorry, it was his grandmother. And he was about my age, so he was about 10. And I lived in Tarawi. It's about a 20-minute drive from out of town, from where I live. It's a very small town, very small. It's pretty much a ghost town now. I think maybe 50 or 100 people live there, if that. Um, anyway, she passed away, and she died in the house where they lived. And he went to the toilet to take a crap. It's funny, but yet fucking creepy as fuck. Now, I remember his toilet. It's a really small toilet. It's like very narrow. So you sit there, and you got pretty much the door maybe a couple of feet away from you. And he said he sat there, and this face of his grandmother come through the door, and looked at him like this, and had a conversation with him. And he was so stunned. He said he was so, because he said to us, he said, "I'm going to tell you something, but you're not going to believe me. But I have to say something. This is what happened. You know, you're going to think I'm crazy, but why would I make it up? You know." And so he only told me and a couple other friends, and I'm not going to say his name. And he said it was my grandmother. She was just this close away from me, and she was just having a conversation with him. And he was stunned at the moment. He said he was stunned, and then he's just started coming. And I said, "What did she say?" She said, "Are you taking care of yourself, dear? You're being a good boy, being a good boy for your mum and dad. I love you, and you will be a good boy. Grandma will always watch out for you." And he was saying stuff that not a 10-year-old would say. He was repeating stuff an adult would say, you know. And when he was explaining it to us, he was generally just uncomfortable at it. Well, like it did, because I know the kid. He's a larrikin. He's a bit of a laugh, you know. But when he was explaining that, it was different. It was not put on because he's just talking out of his ass. I said, no, he's not talking out of his ass. Something. He was adamant what he saw, you know, and I believed him because I said to him, I said, man, like that sounds crazy, but you believe it, so I'll believe it, you know. And he said, thanks, dude. I really appreciate that because like this is something I'm not going to go and tell everyone. He never told his parents. I know he never told his parents because I remember bumping him years later. I said, hey, man, you remember telling us about your grandma? He goes, dude, I still haven't even told my mum that I saw my grandma. Be like, she would tell me I'm bonkers. I need to go and see a doctor or something. But he said, you know what? He said, every now and then I just feel that she's near me. Like I'll be doing something and I can just feel her presence. Like I can smell her. Like, you know, like the perfume that she had. And it's just really weird. And I said to him, "Did you like?" He had a good relationship with his grandma. Like he had a really good relationship with her, you know. And she was a really nice lady. I vaguely remember her. She would always make stuff for us, you know. She was one of those doting ladies. So I just think maybe she wasn't ready to go. Maybe she was worried about her family, you know, because like spirits sometimes don't want to leave. They feel that there's something unfinished, and that's why they stick around. You know.
Well, I mean, not to mention, you know, when it comes down to it, man,
Mm,
people love their routine,
mm.
and what bigger interruption of your routine is there than death,
Oh yeah,
right? Like,
yeah. That's a huge eruption, but yeah, I just
I
remember.
think.
But like that's
Oh,
why I
I'm
brought.
sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
that's right. Sorry, as I was saying, when you mentioned that face, I remember that story. I think I might have said something to you once before about it because that's one thing. Like I know a lot of people don't believe in spirits and stuff like that, but I do have a belief that there's something out there. You can't put it. I can't put my finger on it, but I feel that there's things out there that can't be explained, and then there must be another explanation, which is the paranormal or the supernatural. So there's like even if you look online, there's videos, like there's still current videos, like people, like when people are saying, oh, there's a Sasquatch and stuff like that, something I would like to believe, but 9 times out of 10 it's a dude in a suit. But when it's something supernatural or it's something paranormal, and I've seen it myself on videos and stuff like that, it says, wow, that's really disturbing. There's a video.
Yeah.
There's a video of a nightclub. This guy had a nightclub, and because I just remember this one as well. This guy who was a nightclub owner, he'd come in every morning, and all the chairs and tables would be moved around. And so he thought, someone's being a troll, someone's doing some stupid shit with my nightclub, and this would go on for quite some time until he got some cameras and installed into his nightclub, because he thought maybe one of the workers are being a bit of an arsehole or something, or someone's got a set of keys that are unaccounted for, an ex-employee. So he set up cameras. And in the camera footage, you see an apparition moving chairs. There's like an entity of something moving these chairs around. And the guy said, I wasn't going to release that footage because people think I'm fucking crazy. But someone's got a hold of that tape. I think it's probably on YouTube. I need to find it now, because I remember seeing that and that freaked me the fuck out. Like, that looked crazy. Yeah, so just things like that. Like if there's... Like the old story saying, like, remember in the 50s and the 40s and 30s, people seeing UFOs, but now you hardly ever see anything because everyone's got cameras and stuff. You hardly hear of a report of a UFO, because people can just make it up, maybe just, But ghosts on the other side and paranormal activity, that's a grey area. That is definitely a grey area where something is, like, you've got some concrete evidence of something really weird happening there. And people can't explain it. Look, I just filmed this. And you're thinking... And then people try to bounce it. Oh, no, they might use special effects or something. But, like, these are normal folk who are just minding their own business. They're not Steven Spielberg's trying to do some sort of paranormal activity movie. They got actual footage, So those things, I'm like, okay, well, how do you explain that then? Something weird's going over there.
Well, I mean, you have that, and then I feel like everybody knows somebody who's had an experience.
Oh, hell yeah!
Dealt with whatever, and I mean, look, at the end of the day, right? People have been around on Earth for a long time.
Oh yeah,
long time, and if you want to break down human life in even the simplest form, right? Like, we're just a massive energy. And one of the laws of physics is energy can't be created nor destroyed, right? Like, energy is just a constant.
Even when we die, we're still here.
Yeah. And so I think with that, natural forces, whether they be mystic or not, shout out to Bob Marley, natural mystic forces.
I want to love you.
But I think ultimately, for me, it's more people need to have to try to argue that there's not such a thing as a spiritual realm or paranormal activity. I feel like it's at that point, just because how many times have we seen or heard a story about a kid or a person seeing somebody, describing that person and having full-fledged conversations, and then finding out that person's been dead for X amount of years, and they end up finding a relative, spouse of that dead person, right? Like, I remember there was a story I'd watched. I wish I could remember the kid's name off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But there was a kid who swore up and down that he was a reincarnation of a former actor from Hollywood, right? And it was one of those things where like the mom was like, "Okay, my kid's fucking crazy." Like that was her
Yeah.
like actual quote reaction.
Yeah.
My kid's crazy. Um, so they went and they took him to all these different specialists and stuff like that. They had brain scans. They didn't find nothing, and then eventually they started talking to somebody who was kind of like I guess you could say like a medium.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so this medium started asking this kid questions like, okay, you say that you were somebody else in a past life. What was your name? Okay, kid said the name.
Mm.
What movies were you in? Oh, I was in a lot of movies. I can tell you I was in this one. This actor was in it. This one. Even went down to talk about who he was married to, what she looked like, what her favorite color was, what he got her for a wedding gift. Like, this kid knew all of
Mm.
this shit. He even knew what he had left his daughter
Mm.
in his will.
Yeah.
In his will. What 8-year-old kid knows about a will and fucking testament,
Nothing. They're just kids.
right?
Mm.
And the greatest part was they end up talking about, and I'll try to find the link and I'll make sure to post it on your Discord.
I think I heard about this
Um,
story. I've heard about this kid. Is it
but
not old? Is it an old story?
it's somewhat newer. I mean, it's in the past 5 to 10
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember. I
But
think it was
there's
even on the news. Was it this on the news as well?
I think so.
Yeah.
But they found, so they're having this kid look through still photographs of all these movies that he
Mm.
says that
Mm.
he had worked on,
Mm.
and they didn't tell him the name, they didn't tell him what to look for, but they just handed him all these books of old style movies. Some movies were the names of stuff that he had mentioned, some weren't.
Mm.
And he's going through all these books, and he fucking stops at this one page, and he points. He's like, "That's me,"
Mm.
right? And they look out, and they look, and they fucking have somebody from the studio do a bunch of backlog research and fucking hunt down the
Mm.
original photo.
Yeah.
And sure as shit, the name that the kid gave them, who he said he was, that's who was in the picture. Like, that to me, I understand coincidence and everything like that, but to know that much is just something that, and then, you even have things like what was it, the JFK assassination, right? You have that woman who swore up and down that she had dreams and premonitions that John F. Kennedy was going to be assassinated,
But
and there was a whole part in the Warren Commission. Like, if you ever go back and read that, or wait, am I
mm.
confusing the Warren Commission with
Yeah.
like 9/11? Either way, the fucking the commission that was set up to investigate the JFK assassination. Okay,
Yeah.
um,
That kid you was mentioning.
they.
Sorry, I was just going to mention that
Hmm.
kid. His name was 10-year-old boy says he remembers past life as Hollywood actor. Boy says his memories of life as Marty Martin, a movie extra and Hollywood agent who died in 1964. Ron, a 10-year-old boy from Oklahoma, believes he's the reincarnation of a Hollywood actor, Marty Martin, who died in 1964. Reported that Ryan began having nightmares at age 4 and then at age 5 told his mother, Cindy, I used to be somebody else. Then the 5-year-old would cry to his mother to take him home to Hollywood and recounted stories of meeting Rita Hayworth, dancing on a Broadway, travelling overseas, and working at an agency. When his mother showed him a library book with public photo shots, Ryan pointed out to a man in 1932 Mae West film Night After Night. She turns to the page of the book and says, That's me, that's who I was, said Ryan. Cindy, a Baptist who previously didn't believe in reincarnation, reached out to child psychologist Jim Tucker at the University of Virginia. Tucker tracked down the identity of Martin, who was a movie extra turned Hollywood agent. He had, in fact, danced on Broadway, travelled overseas, and worked as an agency. Tucker said almost none of these details were available online. Tucker recounts Ryan's story as well as the stories of other children who say they remember past lives in his book Return of Life Extraordinary Cases of Children Who Remember Past Lives. That's fucking creepy.
Yeah, that's nuts. Also,
Oh,
my video went
oh
down. I
yeah, that's
can't get
okay.
it. I can't get
That's
it out at the moment.
that's
But
okay. That's
sorry.
okay. That's okay. I'm now the Stone Samurai.
Yep. You are me.
That's okay. But yeah, that's some crazy shit, dude. Right, when you get your video back, let me know, dude. But that is
Will do.
some, yeah. Reincarnation is another thing. Um, it's yeah. I don't know. There's some things that people
No,
say, and they know so
like I
much
said,
history. Yeah.
that's one of those stories though, right? Where
Mm,
like you present that story to somebody who says like, oh, that
mm,
all that shit's just hoopla, and it's like,
yeah.
okay, explain that.
Yeah.
Like, explain
Yeah.
that.
But you can't. You can't. How's a kid gonna know all that? You know. Yeah. It's just and even the mother, like, why would she do that to her own child to do, like, find this information? I mean, where's the sense of it? You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense.
No, 100%.
Yeah, but
I mean, I think, like I said, I think really, and that's why we're talking about it, right?
mm,
Because like I know we went from urban legends, and now we're just kind of talking about paranormal
yeah, bit of everything,
in
bit of
general.
everything, bit of everything.
Um, but that's the thing, that's what makes it so fascinating, is because at the end of
Mm,
it, the human mind has been able to achieve some great things, right? Like
mm.
we understand that there is 8 planets, nine if you count Pluto, right?
I still always
And
count
we know
Pluto.
that we're all orbiting around this
Yeah.
big ass star that we all agreed is called the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've been able to achieve all these things and understand all of
Yeah.
these crazy concepts, right? Like we understand how stars work, we understand how
Yeah.
works, like all these things.
Mm,
But then when it comes to a chair moving by itself,
mm.
a glass flying across the room, voices being heard, weird images popping up, or a matrix scene, as some people call it.
Or hand scratching sounds behind a wall.
Yeah,
You
like
know, just
shit like
shit.
that
Yeah,
happens. It's like
you don't understand
there's
it. Like,
nothing
yeah.
that, yeah, there's
Mm,
nothing that can explain it. And the thing is,
mm.
what's fascinating to me is that the human mind can imagine all of this wild and out of the world things, but sometimes the scarier and more frightening aspects of life isn't really what's in our imagination. It's more what's reality that's
Yeah.
more scary.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, definitely, dude. That's it. Like you said, there's just some things that can't be explained, won't be explained, and no matter how many times you can look at it, I could say this would be a more sensible way this would happen, and still would make a lick of sense until you say, well, hey, the only way to explain this is some sort of paranormal activity or some supernatural entity. But I think if you have an open mind, and I think it's some. I think the problem is with most people is like they don't want to understand that. They don't want to think, well, hey, look, once you're dead, you're dust. You're gone. There's no afterlife. There's no afterlife. There's no spirits. We just go in the ground and we become part of the earth. But I feel that moment when that is questioned, when things like this happen, like it get caught on the camera, or a child stating he was somebody else in the '60s and he's just 5 or 6 years old, doesn't make sense. So then these things they need to be taken into account. Where you say, well, hey, what about this? What about that? Um, it people need to open their minds and let something and not be. But even like back in the days, or like when people used to burn people for being witches, um, and or drown them. If you sank, you was human. If you floated, you was a witch. Either way, you was fucked. you know.
Yes.
There
Well,
was no way
and
out of it. Yeah.
you know why a lot of those witch trials happen, right? Like especially like the Salem witch trials,
Oh
right?
yeah, because like it was just all to do with getting what you want, and if you couldn't get what you wanted, witch.
No, 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 no. No, they basically what happened specifically in Salem,
Gotta look good for my close up.
they ended up
Sorry.
discovering that uh the people in the town had gotten contaminated by this fungus spore that was growing
Mm,
on their wheat. So
mm.
basically what happened,
I remember.
the
Yeah.
the
Yep.
crop yeah, the crop intake that year was weird. There was a weird climate, and
Mm-hmm.
the way that they stored it, because it wasn't
Mm.
stored properly,
Yeah.
it allowed for this fungus to grow,
Yep.
and when it's consumed, it can cause
Nations,
hallucinations
yes.
in
I think you
people.
said this to me before. Yep.
Yeah, and so like a lot of them, that's what ended up happening. A lot of these people were like basically fucking poisoned,
Yeah.
and that's where they started like hallucinating that people
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you hallucinate, bad shit is going to get down. So that's pretty
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah,
But
don't do acid.
or wheat that's not been properly kept.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
exactly.
exactly. Well, listen, seeing that we're having a bit of technical difficulties with the camera, I'm gonna call it here.
Yeah,
But I would
yeah.
like
I'm
to
sorry
thank
about
you.
that.
No, that's okay, man. It's all good. Like we're from long distance away and shit, but we've had a good chat. And I would like to thank my special guest once again, the Stone Samurai, for coming in and talking about urban legends slash spooky shit. We do love talking about this, but if there's anything that you want to discuss or have any topics, please feel free to mention it below. You guys have been awesome. Thank you for all the kind words about the podcast. We love doing them. We'll try and keep them on a weekly basis. But like I said, we live in real life. We're streamers as well. We've got our own personal stuff to deal with. And work and stuff. So really appreciate you guys popping in here and just liking the video. Even if you watch 5-10 minutes, we really appreciate it. We know everyone's going to sit here and watch the whole thing. That's fine. This is just for our amusement. We like doing these. So again, thanks everyone for popping in and participating with the questions and queries and just the likes. And also, if you're new to the channel, please, and if you like what you see, please comment and like and subscribe below. I'd really appreciate the subscriptions to the channel. And like I said, if you've got any questions or queries about tonight's topics or want us to look into a story, please feel free, because maybe this is something we can do on a regular basis, urban legends, spooky stuff, because I'm a horror feed. I love stuff like this.
Same.
It makes you question things. I would like to do one maybe about mythical creatures and Greek mythology, something like that, because I love that sort of stuff when I was a kid growing up. But yeah, but anyway, again, I'm going to let Hershey say his goodbyes, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Thank you everybody for listening. Like PS2 said, like and subscribe, and I'll see you sweaty nerds later.
No worries. Thanks everyone for popping in, and we appreciate you, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Bye for now.